Are the Chicago Bulls shopping DeMar DeRozan? Is it a possibility that DeMar DeRozan could in fact land with the Los Angeles Clippers? We're going to be talking about a recent report that says that the Los Angeles Clippers have DeMar DeRozan as a potential sign and trade candidate. This is Rico Greenhowe, and this is another episode of Bulls Digest. Before we jump into it, I want to let you know that 75.6% of you guys that watch the videos are not subscribed to the channel. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with your latest news and happenings around your Chicago Bulls. And without further ado, let's jump into the topic of the day, which is DeMar DeRozan to the Clippers. All right, guys, so this is quite interesting as tweets and articles have dropped. This actually dropped just yesterday here, so this is everywhere. And there is a recent report by a writer that is saying that the Los Angeles Clippers are very much looking at DeMar DeRozan, and it is all going to depend on what is going to happen with this Paul George situation. So first, let's go ahead and bring up the actual tweet and what was said here. As previously reported, this was on Hoops Hype, that DeMar will ultimately resign with the Bulls, given the team's continued desire to compete, and his role and willingness for Chicago to go ahead and pay him. However, one team worth monitoring as a potential suitor for DeRozan via sign and trade is the Los Angeles Clippers. And guys, I went ahead and also got an article here. This is Last Word on Sports, and it's actually detailing exactly what the situation is for not only DeMar, but also for the Clippers and the Bulls. You're going to find out exactly what would be in it for both teams if they were to go ahead and execute a sign and trade here. So you can find this again on the Last Word on Sports. And again, this particular piece of news is everywhere, but I thought that this was a great piece to take a look at here. So just to look here, paraphrasing what is going on, obviously we know that DeMar DeRozan is 15 years in, and he had a very good season, averaged a high 37.8 minutes per game. He averaged the 24 points per game on 48% shooting, and he was also right in the running and finished runner-up to Steph Curry for the Clutch Player of the Year award. So DeMar DeRozan had quite a great season, and obviously I think that just because he's older does not mean that he is not a desirable free agent. You see the numbers that he posted along with the 5.3 assists and 1.1 steals. Now this is where it gets interesting when it starts to talk about the cap space that the Clippers have. So the Clippers currently, they have $32.8 million to spend. That would require letting go of a cap hold on James Harden, making it all but impossible to maintain the big three of Harden, Kawhi Leonard, and another star. But what they're really anticipating on is that DeMar DeRozan would essentially slide over with Paul George just leaving here, because I guess it's noted that Paul George wants the max, and I think that James Harden is going to want somewhere similar to the max as well. And so the ideal situation, because, it would have to be a sign and trade, is that the money is going to have to match up here. And that's where it gets a little bit complicated. And I will say this, with DeMar DeRozan and the potential fit, the one thing that it talks about is that DeMar DeRozan is a little bit more efficient as a fit here, because he's a little bit more methodical with the way he attacks on the offensive end, and you know exactly what you are going to get with DeMar DeRozan, because one, he is always available. Two, you know where he likes to get the basketball, which is he likes to score in the mid-range area. So I think that is pretty favorable to the Clippers. Now, obviously, they're going to lose a little bit on the defensive end. You already have a leaky defender with James Harden. It's talking about that. You have Terrence Mann, who's a little bit of a streaky shooter as well there. So obviously the Clippers would have to make a little bit more adjustments in the starting lineup to go along with DeMar DeRozan, but this could be a fit for them. I think that they would get a player that ultimately, I think it makes a whole bunch of sense to get him over there from a consistency standpoint, and also to close down games, especially if you may be in a situation where you don't have Kawhi Leonard out there with the injuries. And honestly, I think that had the Clippers had DeMar DeRozan over there and they were in the same situation that they were without Kawhi Leonard, perhaps he might have been able to help that unit get past the Mavs. And I'm not going to take anything away from the Mavs. You know, obviously they were playing great basketball, and they still are playing great basketball, as they're just within a win of getting to the NBA Finals. But I think you could argue that, look, a steady DeMar DeRozan is going to give you something that is more consistent than Paul George, who was absolutely all over the place. You're not going to have to worry about the injuries. When the offense was bogging down, he perhaps could have settled the tide for the Clippers and kept them in the game. But, you know, who knows? That's hypothetical, just like this situation is hypothetical. But it makes a lot of sense for the Clippers. And so now you have to ask yourself, what's in it for the Bulls? Obviously, we know this is a complicated situation with the salary cap. So if we're looking at it from Chicago's standpoint, what they are mentioning is that perhaps we would get Norman Powell out of this deal. Perhaps we would get Zubac out of this, and Russell Westbrook out of this as well. Because why would we bring Russell Westbrook in? Well, it talks about Lonzo Ball and pretty much his situation, and we don't really know what that's looking like. We're getting a guard back in Westbrook who is a 17.8 points per game score. We're also getting 7.2 assists per the 36 minutes. Norman Powell is coming off being in the six-man running. Here's a guy that is getting 16.4 points per game, hitting 41% of his three-point shots. And I will throw this out there too about Norman Powell. He is a lot better of a defender than most people give him. Had a chance to look at him when he was in school at UCLA. Watched him closely when he was with the Raptors, and have watched him throughout this time with the Clippers. So I love this guy. I think that he is an absolute great fit for us from a wing standpoint. I think he helps us here. And we know that we need a center, and I love Zubac. I think that Zubac is probably one of the most basic centers that you can get, but I absolutely loved him when he was with the Los Angeles Lakers. I love him now with the Clippers. He seems to understand how to play pick and roll defense. He is not a guy that is going to be a slouch on the defensive end, and he is very active on the rebounding aspect of things. And so I like this a lot for the Chicago Bulls if they could execute a sign and trade. But I just think that the biggest issue that we're going to have in this is that more than likely, I think that it's not going to work because of the sign and trade and what is going to have to happen there. I mean, it is going to take another team, I think, to kind of move in to help facilitate this deal in order to get DeMar DeRozan over here. And so, the bottom line is, I think that does it make sense for DeMar DeRozan to go over there? Yeah, it fits with what they would have. I just think that it's probably, from a money situation, it's going to be tough to get done. I think you're going to have to ultimately add another team in. And then when we're talking sign and trade, that means that DeMar DeRozan would have to agree to do business with us and sign, and then want to be traded back to the Clippers. And so that's another thing as well, guys, that we're not talking about the fact that Chicago has no control over what DeMar DeRozan wants to do. At this point in time, he could say, hey, I want to go to the Clippers and play on the minimum at this point. Who knows? I'm not saying he is, but, right now, we seem to be, like it said at the start of the article, as the ones that are going to sign DeMar DeRozan. And I think that from what we gather from DeMar DeRozan, he is really intending on finishing out with the Chicago Bulls, and however that looks like. So let me know in the comments, guys, do you guys think that we are going to ultimately just sign DeMar DeRozan and then try to build around him and our young pieces and ship off Zach Lavine? Do you think that we're going to get another team involved and we are going to get a sign and trade opportunity with the Los Angeles Clippers, in which we do get players like Norman Powell, a Russell Westbrook back, or a Zubac back. Do you guys feel like that is a potential here? Or do you lastly feel like at the end of the day, all we are doing is going around the merry-go-round and we are going to get back? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. This is Rico Greenhowe. This is another episode of Bulls Digest. And even though we are talking about a sign and trade for a player that is an unrestricted free agent, and we don't know what we're going to do, I'm still saying go Bulls. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.